Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of the Luna's Galaxy podcast. My name is Emmy, but you can also call me Luna, and I'll be the host of this show. The Luna's Galaxy podcast goes live on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and other podcast services on Tuesday, every 2 weeks. For this episode, we have 4 segments: gaming news, what I've been playing, questions, and the topic of the show. And this week we are going to be talking about my favorite game of all time. 9 hours, 9 persons, 9 doors. As I'm sure you've heard me talk about many times. And I'm not done yet, so here we go. So for gaming news this week, the first thing I want to talk about is Twitch. So there are 2 stories here that I want to touch on. So, as some of you might know, on September 1st, I believe, there was the Twitch Do Better protest, also known as a day off Twitch. And basically what this was a lot of streamers and a lot of viewers were not on Twitch that day. So there was not as many people streaming, there was not as many people watching, and this was to protest the hate raids that have been going on. So I talked about this a bit last episode, the hate raids that have been happening on Twitch, usually towards marginalized creators, follow botting, all of this just really shitty stuff. And so Twitch Do Better, a day off Twitch, actually made an impact. So I think this is from PC Gamers where I found it. So Twitch lost about 1 million viewers during the protest, and that number is actually the lowest total number of views for this entire year so far. So there has definitely been an impact. 1 million might not seem at as much in the grand scheme of things, it was only one day, and probably the next day it was right back up again where it would usually be. But I do think that this sends a message loud and clear, and even if the protest itself, the 1 million viewers going down for one day didn't actually mean much to Twitch, I think what matters is that there was obviously the impact for that one day. And also, this was covered by a lot of news outlets. So, IGN is the biggest one that I can think of, but this has really been talked about. And as we will see, Twitch is actually doing some stuff about it. So, I do think that this was worthwhile. Also, just thank you to the bigger streamers that took part in this, because I know not everyone is able to. I'm not judging you if you didn't take part in the protest, but I think it is cool to see a lot of, bigger people that obviously, probably aren't getting as affected by the hate rating because maybe they're not marginalized, or, they just have this big platform and this big team of mods that they're able to deal with it. And, I remember there were some people saying, this isn't going to work, this is not going to do anything, just leave Twitch is basically what people were saying, and I don't think that that is the answer to this at all. So it is good to see that, some people are stepping up, because I think it can be very discouraging when you see these really big creators like Asmongold saying that, this isn't going to do anything, and it's don't say that! Imagine if Asmongold did that, and I don't even know if he streamed that day, but, just those really big creators that can pull in, thousands, hundreds of thousands of views, if, the difference in the number even then, could have been a lot more. But we still made a big impact, so incredible, and I am glad to see that stuff is being done. So this next thing is that Twitch is actually suing 2 people that are suspected of doing this hate rating and follow botting and all of this stuff. Now, I'm not sure how they, if it's just IP address, how they're doing this, and then there's also the question of are these people just using a VPN, because they probably are. So I'm not sure what is actually going to happen when it comes to this, if this lawsuit is going to go through, how it's going to be handled. I don't know what's going to come out of that. I don't know much about law. But I want to see Twitch, they are obviously doing something about this, and I hope that, these other people that are doing the hate rating will see this and they'll be like, oh shit, I don't want to get sued. So even if this doesn't exactly go through, it doesn't go many places, if it can at least just scare people into being oh, maybe we shouldn't be doing this, I think that would be great. So it is good to see that Twitch is actually doing something about it. Obviously, we are still waiting, as the time of recording, on some more tools for creators to deal with these hate raids. Obviously, there are still more things that we want in place to prevent these and to feel more safe on the platform. But I do think that this is a good start, and I do believe that there were some Twitch ambassadors that had met with Twitch. I have been seeing on Twitter some creators saying, "Hey, I did get to meet with Twitch. We had a conversation. Don't know what's going to come of it, but they are actually doing something, so it is a relief." And I just hope to see more from them, because I do think we're going in the right direction. So yeah, I wanted to bring that up because I know I've been talking about the hate raids a lot on Twitter and obviously on the last episode of the podcast, so there's a little bit of an update for you. The protest was, I would say, successful, and Twitch is doing something about it. Is it what people were asking for? No, but I think this is still a good way to instill fear in these hate raiders. To be like, do you want to, pay us a bunch of money for inciting hate on our platform? So, yeah, I don't know what's going to come of it, but this is good news. This is all good news amongst a lot of really shitty things. I'm glad something is being done about it. So, the next thing on our little news segment for this week is a few days ago, there was the PlayStation Showcase, and I streamed it. The VOD is not up anymore because there was a lot of copyrighted music. So I was like, I'm just gonna delete that, because I remember there was some Baby Metal playing, and I didn't want to mute it because I was like, I love Baby Metal, let's go. But yeah, it was a good showcase, I think. There was not much for me, as there happens to be at a lot of these showcases, but I do want to talk about something. So Forspoken was shown off, and that looks pretty cool. The dialogue wasn't exactly for me. I did see some other people talking about this on Twitter, how it seemed maybe a bit cringy, but overall, I think Forspoken looks great. I think, obviously, graphically it looks great. I think the aesthetics are pretty cool. The gameplay looks fun, and as I'm sure a lot of you know, I don't always play a lot of Western games, and I'm not actually sure what part of Square Enix is developing this, but obviously I think it is targeted more at a Western audience, but it does still seem to have elements that I think I would really like in a game when it comes to gameplay. So it's still not, I don't know if I've been completely sold on it in a way where it's like, I'm going to pay for this $90 on release day, but I do think I will definitely get it on sale at some point when I eventually get a PS5. And I also believe that as spring 22 that Forspoken is coming out. I could be wrong on that, but I do believe that they did announce that, and honestly this could have already been announced, I don't remember, but spring 2022 for Forspoken, which is cool. Another game that caught my eye was Project Eve, and I don't know if this has been shown off before. I think I've seen on Twitter that it has been, but I don't know if I've seen it before. But anyway, it looks really cool. There's hot girls. There's a hot girl. You play as a hot girl. And also the music sounded really cool. I haven't played any DMC games, but I do know that one song. I can't remember what's called. Is it Devil Trigger? I don't know. I'm probably wrong. But I know that there is a song that was in DMC5 that was cool. And the songs and the music that was in the Project Eve trailer was kind of giving me the same energy. And also, gameplay-wise, it does remind me of what I've seen of DMC, which makes me think maybe I should play that series. Maybe eventually. But yeah, it looks really cool. I don't think they gave any sort of release window for that, so that kind of sucked. But either way, I think it looks really cool. I'm honestly more interested in that than Forspoken. Even though I know Square Enix as, a company and, the kind of games they put out. I'm not familiar with this company at all, but just, aesthetically and just everything, I think I'm more interested in Project Eve. That was probably the highlight of the show for me. And there was also more Ghostwire Tokyo. So that was cool. I really want to play Ghostwire Tokyo because every time I see it, it looks fantastic. I love the aesthetic of it. I think it looks like a fun horror game that I would enjoy, but it's in first person, and I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I've definitely talked about it on stream before. I got motion sickness, and I just don't think first-person games would vibe with me. So, I don't know. If I do eventually get that game, it will be something I get on sale. But, oh, I wish, if this was in third person, if Ghostwire Tokyo was in third person, it would probably be a day one buy for me, because I think it looks fantastic. But alas, here we are. Also, Uncharted 4 and Lost Legacy are being remastered. Is it remastered or just ported? I don't know. One of those to PC, and I don't know if it was also PS5, but yeah, I think it is also PS5. But PC is the big one, because obviously that is Naughty Dog. First person PlayStation Studio. So interesting. We have been seeing more of that. I think Days Gone, has that also gone to PC, or was that just rumored? Same with Horizon. I don't remember. But we are seeing more of that happening. I don't have this rest of what I'm thinking right now in my notes, so just bear with me. But there was also a few Marvel games announced. So we got Spider-Man 2, developed by Insomniac, and then Wolverine, developed by Insomniac. There was, I know this isn't Marvel, but I put them in the same category. There was also Star Wars, is it Knights of the Old Republic? Is that what it is? I think it is. A remaster for that is coming out. So those are cool things for the people that are interested in them. But I have been noticing these past few sort of gaming presentations, I feel left out, because as someone that doesn't watch a lot of movies, I'm not like a big Marvel fan, I'm not a big Star Wars fan, it feels like every single thing that I watch, there's a new Marvel game, or like that's what's being shown off. And there's also like the Guardians of the Galaxy, we've seen more of that, the new Square Enix game. So there's so many Marvel things happening, and I don't think that's wrong at all. I know a lot of people love them, but as someone that is not, watching a lot of movies, is not really into that, I'm just like, oh. Like every time I see the Marvel logo during a presentation, I'm like, oh, I wish this was something else. But like Spider-Man and Wolverine did look really good. If I am ever going to get into anything Marvel, it will be Spider-Man. I can say that with certainty. That's the only thing that really interests me. So maybe someday, but not today. But anyway, for the next segment, what I've been playing. So my sub to Final Fantasy XIV did run out, and then probably like 5 days later, I resubbed, which I said I wasn't going to do, but I did it. I had to. It felt right. I missed it. I wanted to play more Final Fantasy XIV. So here we are. I'm still playing A Realm Reborn. I'm hopefully going to finish the patch quest pretty soon. I'm on the 2.55 ones now, so that's like the last sort of batch of them. So hopefully I'll start having Sword really soon, which is really exciting. But also I want to talk about the Shiva boss. I don't think that's really a spoiler. You expect to see Shiva in a Final Fantasy game, but the Shiva boss, that music is fantastic. Like the music in Final Fantasy XIV in general, I think is really good. But, as I'm, like, doing that boss, I was like, this is so cool. But then after, like, the halfway point, she does Diamond Dust. I'm going to assume that's what it's called. I don't actually know what her moves are called. But in my mind, I was like, this is Diamond Dust. She does that thing where you freeze, and then she unfreezes you. You take a decent, like, everyone takes a decent amount of damage. And then the music just gets so hardcore, and it's so cool. I added it to my Apple Music so I can listen to it. It was just so cool. And I tried to do the extreme trial for Shiva, and I just used the duty finder, which I don't think you're supposed to do for like extreme content. And we failed. It was very upsetting. We spent like an hour or like whatever the max amount of time is, and we fucking ran out of time. But I'm gonna get the mechanics. I'm gonna get it. I'm not giving up, but I'm probably never going to attempt an extreme trial for a long time, given that experience. So yeah, I'm still enjoying Final Fantasy XIV. And also, I started the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. So this was in the summer. The Ace Attorney Chronicles collection came out, and I bought it on Switch. And I've been playing the first one, and I am enjoying it. Ace Attorney has never been like a mind-blowing series to me, but it is enjoyable. It is what I was in the mood for. I really enjoy some of the mechanics. So I've only played the first two Ace Attorney games with Phoenix Wright. And I didn't even finish the second one. So I don't have much experience with the series in the grand scheme of things, so I don't know how many of these mechanics were introduced in the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, or if they were introduced earlier on in the series and I just hadn't played those games. But I'm currently at chapter 3 in the game. I haven't finished it yet, but so far that's probably my favorite case, which is weird because I find third cases are usually, the downer. But I'm really enjoying it. The first case, I like the characters as well. I think the characters are very enjoyable. They're very fun. I'm not gonna die for them, but I enjoy them. You know what I'm saying? I think that Sherlock Sholmes. Can you believe I said that? Oh my god, I'm a fake Ace Attorney fan. Sherlock Sholmes is hilarious. I like his movements. He does these really funny sort of movements with his hands, and there's a part where he's saying he's gonna fight and he's getting in his fighting stance, and he's very funny. He's very kind of theatrical, and I love that about him. And yeah, the new mechanics. So, like I said, I don't know how much of this is new, but I like the jury. I know this wasn't in the Ace Attorney games that I played. I think it is new to this one, but I could be wrong. I think that having a jury is kind of interesting. There was something else. There was definitely something else that I wanted to mention that is new mechanic. Oh, the sort of Sherlock Sholmes, sort of solving it out part. And I don't know how much of that is in the game, because Chapter 2 was a lot different. But in Chapter 2, you see this part where you're trying, Sherlock Sholmes is saying, oh, well, it's obviously this, and this is what's going on. But he gets, one key thing wrong, every time that he does it. And you have to, figure out what is wrong and correct him, and sort of, what's it called? I don't know. But, get back on the right page, basically. Because it's, he's figuring it out, but not very great. He is missing some key elements. And so I also enjoyed that. I think I'm probably going to finish it kind of soon. I am really enjoying it. So, yeah, definitely if you're an Ace Attorney fan, I definitely think it's worth it to check it out. If not, like I said, I haven't played much of it yet, but I'm really enjoying it. And I do think this is probably a good place to start off if you haven't played any Ace Attorney games. Like I said, I have little experience with the series, but this is not at all connected, at least to my knowledge. It's not at all, greatly connected to, the other games. It is a prequel. So, yeah. I'm enjoying it. So that's really all that I've been playing. I was also playing Psychonauts on Twitch. I don't know if I'm going to continue playing it. I am still, I enjoy it. I just don't know if it's a good stream game. So I'll probably eventually get back to that, hopefully. I don't know if I'll finish it, but I want to. And also, I have been playing DDR, but I also recently bought Dance Dance Revolution X for the PS2. So now I only need one more PS2 DDR game until I have them all. The only one now that I don't have is DDR Max. So that's very exciting. I love DDR, as obviously if you listen to this podcast, you probably know that. But I'm very, very excited. Whenever I go, if I'm tempted to buy a new DDR game, I'll always go on YouTube and look at the song list. And the song list for DDRX did look kind of cool. There are some more Western songs where I'm this is a weird choice. Big Girls Don't Cry by Fergie. I'm do I really want to be dancing to this? But yeah, other than that, it seemed pretty cool. So that's very exciting for me, at least. I was kind of disappointed, though, that we didn't see Dance Dance Revolution Ultimate announced for the PlayStation 5 for 2022. As I was speculating we would at the PlayStation Showcase, there was no Dance Dance Revolution, so of course I was very disappointed. But actually, on a more serious note, I don't know. But I know a lot of people were thinking that there was going to be a Silent Hill or Metal Gear Solid shown at the PlayStation Showcase, which we did not get. And honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if that is a thing that is happening. But yeah, we didn't see it, so I don't know. But honestly, Konami, if you're not going to do things with your IPs, just give them to someone else. Because I think obviously there's enough demand for Silent Hill and Metal Gear Solid to continue being a franchise and to continue games there. but also I want Dance Dance Revolution, so just sell your IPs, I don't know, or just make a game. Just make a Dance Dance Revolution game. Please, I am begging you. I would literally pay like $200 for it and not think twice. Or even $300. Like, I don't know, I'm a bit crazy. So I might do that. Like, if it comes with like the dance pad, I mean, obviously would have to. So like a dance pad and a new DDR game for like $250, count me in. But anyway, let's get to the question segment for this week. So the question for this week was, what video game or video game series has your favorite story of all time? So it's a bit of a loaded question, but I was curious and I felt like it fit our topic of the show for this episode. So let's get into the answers that you guys had. So, of course, starting off with the Discord answers. We have Sucrose, who says, Persona 5, the first time I played it blew my mind, and my friend hates anime games, but while watching, he was so invested in it. And I don't know, Sucrose, if you've played many JRPGs before, but I feel like I've heard this from a lot of people. A lot of people that, JRPGs aren't their thing, anime isn't their thing, but they play Persona 5, and that is sort of like a gateway drug. I know a lot of people really like Persona 5. Persona 5 does have a pretty good story. It's not my favorite, but I enjoyed it. So yeah, I think that it's definitely, if you're used to playing more Western games, but then you see the hype that games like Persona 5 have, and you're like, hey, I'm going to give this a shot, it's like entering a whole other world of this cool, like, anime game thing. So if you haven't played many other JRPGs, Sucrose, because I know a lot of people going into Persona 5 weren't really expecting or like not used to that type of game, I would recommend playing some more. I think you might be into it. I don't know. And then Gamer Gal Mila says, props a toss-up between Persona 4, Xenoblade Chronicles, and I'm not sure how to say this, Utaware Rumono, Mask of Deception / Mask of Truth. One game story split into two. JRPGs tend to have the best stories. And yeah, that's kind of like I was just saying, JRPGs, I do think, at least for me, tend to have the best stories, or visual novels. I think visual novels is probably more for me, obviously, with Zero Escape and I, the Somnium Files, and, my taste. But if you kind of, loop them into the same category of just usually Japanese-style games, they tend to have the best stories. But yeah, I love Persona 4 so much. And there was also a few other people who had Xenoblade Chronicles in their answer. I don't have much experience with Xenoblade Chronicles. I did play, I would say, about 8 to 10 hours of the definitive edition that came out on Switch, but it didn't resonate with me, I guess. I might go back to it at some point, but I think the gameplay just wasn't clicking for me, and that kind of made me turn off from it. But it's all right from what I've played. Like I said, I haven't obviously played most of it. But yeah, JRPGs have good stories, in case you didn't know. And then Trenton and Andre said Red Dead Redemption 2, and I have not played that, as I'm sure most of you probably could have guessed. But was that Game of the Year? No, I think it was God of War that won that year, but I know it was between God of War and Red Dead Redemption 2 was the big thing. And like, that's one of those games where it's like, I feel like I would be interested in playing it just to see what it's about. But the thing is that when you only have a limited amount of time to play games, it's like, I might as well play the stuff that I'm really interested in. So yeah, but I do want to play it maybe someday. I'll probably never get to it, but I know a lot of people love it. So yeah. And then Born of Kokiri, the wonderful Born of Kokiri, go check him out on Twitch, says Ocarina of Time, a classic tale of boy meets girl, must go through many trials, receives the Ocarina of Time, and pulling out the Master Sword to become the hero of time. Link fulfills his destiny to become a legendary hero, saves Zelda, and stops Ganondorf from conquering Hyrule. And I played a bit of Ocarina of Time. I dabbled in it, but I haven't finished it. And, I mean, like I said, I haven't really delved into it, but it seems like a very simple story. In the same way that I would kind of loop Kingdom Hearts in there. That might sound really weird, but like the first Kingdom Hearts game where it's very simple and clean. Sometimes I just think that the simplicity of a story can be, you know, it resonates with you. So yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. And then at Bad Game Jules, also a Twitch streamer, said the Danganronpa series for sure. Some things are totally expected, but others throw you for a loop, and you just want to know more and more. And I love Danganronpa. My favorite is probably the first one, but I think that the story of V3 probably interests me the most, which is very controversial, I know. But I thought that the story specifically in there was very compelling, whether you liked it or you hated it. I definitely think that they were going for something there, and you know, Danganronpa is another visual novel that I think kind of exemplifies the fact that visual novels are good, which I think makes sense they would have the best stories, because for the most part they are a story with some gameplay just kind of thrown in there. Also, a lot of people a lot of you said Zero Escape, which makes sense given the audience that I've built of Zero Escape fans. So a lot of you said Zero Escape. A lot of you said 999 specifically, if I am correct. And then I believe also Alma said I, the Somnium Files in there too, which is also fantastic. We love those Uchikoshi games, as we're going to find out. I'm about to talk about one. And then our last answer was at Lion Lights, who said Final Fantasy 13, and I'll die on that hill. And I thought this was very interesting because I have played most of Final Fantasy 13. I didn't finish it, but I played most of it, enough to be like, you know, get the gist of it. And I just don't know many people that have that opinion, that they're like, Final Fantasy 13 is the best story in games. And I think part of the problem that at least I had with Final Fantasy 13 was that I felt like in order to understand and really get a grasp of what was going on in more details, I kind of felt like there was a lot that was hidden behind, is it data logs? I don't remember what exactly they call them, but you'd go into the menu and you could read up on like certain terms and like what was happening, and I felt like I had to read that to kind of understand what was going on. And I really hope that they remaster Final Fantasy 13 and like the whole trilogy, because I do want to go back to it and give it another shot, because I did enjoy most of what I played of Final Fantasy 13. I remember before I even had a PS3, I was like, I'm just going to watch some of these cutscenes on YouTube, see what's up, and I really loved it. But I think, and I find this happens sometimes on the internet, is that, you know, you might play something for the first time, you don't really know what other people's opinions of it are, and you're like, oh my god, this is so good, or, you know, you're just really enjoying it, but then you hear that, like, the majority of people think that it's bad, or that it has all these problems, and then maybe these problems that weren't standing out to you before are standing out to you now, and I feel like that kind of happened to me with Final Fantasy 13, which is kind of unfortunate. So I do want to go back to them. I really hope that they remaster them and put them on PlayStation, because I would like an excuse to give it another shot. Like I said, I played most of Final Fantasy 13, but never finished it. I played a tiny bit of 13 too, not much of it. I don't really know anything about Lightning Returns, so I'd be down. Come on, Square Enix. Like, I don't know why they haven't. They just put 13 on Game Pass. Like, just, what the fuck? What the fuck? Anyway, my answer to this question is, of course, 9 hours, 9 persons, 9 doors. There are very few video game stories that I think come close to it, but most of them are also Uchikoshi stories. So, you know, Virtue's Last Reward, I, the Somnium Files. Really, I think only them. Like, I'm trying to think of some of my favorite games and stories that I think genuinely, like, come close to that and are that great, and not many are coming to mind. Because a lot of the time when you enjoy the game, it's either a combination of things. So, you know, story, characters, gameplay, they all kind of come together and they make this really nice sort of pie, I guess. And that's kind of what Kingdom Hearts is for me. I think Kingdom Hearts has a good balance of all of those things, but I don't know if it is a master of any of those things, except for gameplay. I think gameplay is kind of the master of. But, like, story and characters, I think, are great, but they're not, like, god tier, like 999 is, you know? Or, like, another one of my favorite games, Persona 4, the story is great, I love it, but I think I like the characters more than I do the story. So, it's interesting to think about, and, you know, it's just interesting. But anyway, so let's get on to the topic of the show. And this might be a long one because I typed out a lot for this. I thought this was going to be easy because it's my favorite game. I just thought this was, I thought it would be easy. But as I was typing out notes for this section, I was like, holy shit, this is going to take me like an hour to get through. So bear with me. I don't know how long this is going to be, but I have a lot of thoughts on my favorite game of all time. Who would have thought? 9 hours, 9 persons, 9 doors. So if you haven't played the game before, you can still listen for a while. I'm not going to spoil it right away. This is the spoiler-free section, okay? So for this part of topic of the show, I'm going to try and sell you. I'm going to try and sell you 999. I'm going to try and convince you that you have to play this game, or, at least try and figure out if you're interested in it, because, for me, just sort of hearing the premise of it, I was like, ooh. Same with, I remember, this was so long ago now, I don't even remember, it was a Kingdom Hearts podcast. I don't remember if it was Kingdom Hearts Union, or I remember KH Viz used to do a podcast, and they were talking about other games, or anime or something, and someone brought up Danganronpa, and I just heard the premise of it, about, these high school students being forced to kill each other, their ultimate talents, all that, and I was like, ooh, I need to play this game, or, watch the anime, and I watched the anime, right away, and so that's what, that's what I hope to do with this podcast. I hope that you will listen. You will kind of hear what 999 is about. You will hear my spoiler-free thoughts, and you will be like, I need to play this game. So that's my goal right now. So, and some of this is I've typed it out beforehand so that I will stay on track. So if I sound a bit more, what's the word? I don't know. I'm not going to be I will be flexible with this, but is a lot more scripted. Yeah, scripted. It's literally scripted. So yeah. So 999, also known as 9 hours, 9 persons, 9 doors, released in 2009, at least in Japan. It was, I think, December 10th, 2009. I don't think it came here until 2010. But anyway, in 2009 on the Nintendo DS. It was later remastered and released on PlayStation Vita, the PS4, and Steam as a part of the Nonary Games collection, which also includes the sequel, Virtue's Last Reward. And I have in brackets here, Switch port, please. We need the Zero Escape trilogy on Switch. It would be perfect there. I will die on this hill. But anyway, let me tell you about 999 and its plot, because 999 is a visual novel, is very plot heavy, so that's what I'm going to sell you on. So 999, 9 hours, 9 persons, 9 doors, is about 9 people, who would have thought, that have 9 hours to escape from a ship before it sinks. And it's not a little ship, it's a big-ass ship, okay? It's a big-ass ship, they have 9 hours. They were kidnapped and taken to this ship by someone named Zero, who has forced them to play the Nonary game. So every character has what's called a numbered bracelet, and I think it's on their left hand, correct? Because it's it's not right or whatever. I don't know, it's on their left hand. Yes. So every character has what's called a numbered bracelet that ranges from 1 to 9, and these numbered bracelets are used for the characters to enter what are called the numbered doors. The numbered doors also range from 1 to 9 and are found throughout the ship. Their goal in this Nonary game is to find the number 9 door and escape before time is up. So like I said, 9 hours. They have 9 hours to find the number 9 door. And every time you enter a numbered door, you'll have to solve an escape room puzzle in order to continue and solve the mysteries about who Zero is and why they forced our characters to play this Nonary game. Very exciting, very good premise. So yeah, as I'm sure you've kind of gathered from that, the escape rooms are your gameplay in this. They're the gameplay element of this game. Most of it is visual novel style, but there is the escape room puzzles that are, I think, enjoyable. Obviously not the main pull of the game, but it is something. So there's our premise. Now let's get into some of my spoiler-free thoughts on the game. So I think the biggest thing that I want to talk about is the atmosphere and presentation of this game. So I think atmosphere is very important in games. I think it is very integral to the experience, where even if, the game isn't a master of anything, if they get a really good atmosphere and it makes you sort of feel a certain way when you're playing it, I think that is very impressive. And out of all the games I played that I can think of right now, I would say 999 and Corpse Party had my favorite game atmospheres, which might sound really weird because they are both, Corpse Party especially is a horror game, and I will be talking about that in further detail at some point. Not this episode, but sometime in October, I'm sure, spooky season. But 999 has a really great atmosphere. They do a really good job of making you feel a certain way. And so some of the words that I have it described as here are oppressive, tense, and heavy. And oppressive isn't one that I thought of my on my own. I was actually streaming 999 recently for 999 week, which is what got me thinking of all this. And it was a part in the safe ending where the dialogue sort of says, like, the air felt very oppressive. And I was like, oh, that's a good word to describe this. That's a very good word to describe the atmosphere that they're going for here. And it's great. But it's also very tense. When it starts off, it is still tense, but it gets a lot worse later on. And also very heavy, especially when you get towards the end of the game. It's very, like, emotionally heavy. But yeah, also the music is really great in building the atmosphere of this game. So it is sort of horror, not so much sci-fi. It's kind of hard to describe the genre of 999. I've always found it kind of difficult because it's not horror in the way that Corpse Party is horror. Maybe thriller is the right word. I guess we'll say thriller. But the music is very good in making you feel certain ways. So, when you are in the more sort of horror-y segments, what a weird thing, just the horror-y, anyway, the scary, maybe that's a better word, the scary parts of the game. There's some really good songs, so like Trepidation, Chill and Rigor, I don't know if I said that right, but maybe I should like Google how to pronounce things before I say them. Fantastic songs, I think they're so good, and they play at like just the right times as well. There's another song called Quietus, which plays when you get a bad ending, and it's very, like, taunting, which I think is fantastic for when you get a bad ending, because it's like, oh, you were so close, but you're wrong, you didn't do it right, but it still feels kind of scary. It's fantastic. And then there are other songs that will play that make you feel very big-brained, so, when June is explaining Ice 9 to you, I assume Digital Root is playing there. It could be another song, but that is one of the songs that is very sort of when you're trying to puzzle things out and when you're getting these, explanations about, what's this ship called and what happened here, or just, these science experiments that they'll talk about, or, Lotus is explaining prosopagnosia to you. They make you feel like they help my concentration. A lot of the times when I'm studying or doing, like, homework, I will put on 999 music because it genuinely helps. Good for doing math, even though I haven't done math in a very long time. And there are other songs that sort of like the atmosphere feel very emotionally heavy. Like, you just hear him right away, you're like, oh, fuck. At least that is my experience. So I think that the atmosphere in 999 is fantastic. I think the music also really adds to that. I don't have this in my notes, but also some of the sound effects. So, like, when the, not the number 9 door, but, like, when the number doors in general, when they open, there's, like, a, and I know that was a really bad sound effect, but, like, trust me, it sounds cool. It sounds cool in the game. So there's little sound effects like that I think are really cool. And actually, some of the sound effects in 999 are also used in I, the Somnium Files, which I think is really cool, and might add to my theory that they're in the same universe, but let's save that for a different day. Okay, so next thing on my little list here. Also the visuals I think are really good. I love the art style of 999. I think it is fantastic. I think out of all the Xeroescape games, it looks the best, which might sound weird because it is the first game in the series. This was on the DS. The sequel was on the 3DS, and then the other sequel was on, like, the 3DS, Vita, so, like, there's some time in between them, but 999 looks the best. And I think that's because the sprites, like, stylistically, they look nice, whereas in VLR, they're, like, 3D sprites, and it is a cool style, but it doesn't look, I don't know. It's different. And also there are sort of like the still shots that are just kind of like drawn pictures that are, I think, really good. They add a lot. You'll see them throughout the game when there's like important stuff going on, that, the sprites can't really convey. And I really love that art style. I lost my place in my notes. The sprites in the DS version specifically look really good. I don't think they look as good in the Nonary Games remaster, just because of like the nature of how sprites work. In the Nonary Games remaster, they are more just sort of like drawn out, whereas in the DS, they are like literal sprites. But also, the Nonary Games has voice acting, which the DS version does not. But the voice acting in the Nonary Games remaster is fantastic. I think I always praise Evan Smith. I think Evan Smith is a fantastic voice actor, and it always blows my mind that he is not sort of doing more in this scene, because he is one of the best voice actors that I've ever heard, like genuinely, and I've only really heard him voice Junpei. But the voice acting in this game is really good. Obviously, there are some performances that are stronger than others. So the voice acting is very good in this game. Junpei, like I said, fantastic. I literally cannot praise Evan Smith more. He just sounds very real. He sounds like a real person. He has a lot of, like, he knows how to sound angry. He knows how to feel sort of defeated. He knows how to joke around. Like, he just feels like a very real voice actor, and it doesn't feel like, sometimes you hear a voice acting, if you think of like a character like Paimon from Genshin Impact, and it kind of sounds less like acting and more just like a character voice, which isn't to say that they're not acting, but it is kind of like, it doesn't feel as personal, which I don't think is the point of Paimon from Genshin Impact. But you get what I'm trying to say here. But the voice acting, also shout out to Richard Epcar as Ansem. Not Ansem. He does voice Ansem in Kingdom Hearts. My mind is in like 10 different places right now. He does voice Ansem in Kingdom Hearts, but we're talking about 999 right now, where he voices Ace. Sound very similar. So Richard Epcar voices Ace in the Nonary Games version. He's also fantastic. Also, you have Clover. We'll get into the characters later, but what the fuck is happening this segment? Okay, let's see what's next in my notes here. Okay, so I do recommend playing the Nonary Games version of 999 if you are new to the series, if you haven't played it before and you are interested in it. It is the most accessible version to play the game. It's on PS4 and Steam, which is very current. It does also go on sale quite a lot, so you can probably get it on sale now for like $20, maybe even cheaper, I don't know. But it does go on sale quite a lot because they are older games. It is, a remaster collection, so definitely worth your money. But the reason why I recommend the Nonary Games version is primarily for the flowchart and the voice acting. So, for those of you that play the DS version, you probably know what it is like playing that game without a flowchart. The flowchart makes everything a lot easier. So 999 does have multiple endings. There are multiple choices that you can make throughout the game between like what door you're going to go through, as well as some other choices that heavily impact the story. And so it really helps having a flowchart to know what you've done already, what you haven't done, sort of just seeing the way that things fall. And the DS version does not have this. So the DS version, you have to do a lot of playthroughs, which isn't bad if, you get the safe ending the first time and you get the true ending the next time. But if you're like me and you like making your own decisions in a game the first time you play it, you're probably going to get a bad ending, maybe 2 or 3 bad endings before you get to the more like canon endings, and they're all canon, obviously, but the safe ending and the true ending are the ones that you need to complete the game, and it can be difficult to get them without a flowchart. And when you have to continuously replay the game, there's like a button that you can hold down to sort of skip through dialogue, but you still can't. It still takes a while, and you still have to go through all the escape rooms, so it can be a lot more time-consuming and just kind of annoying. So I do recommend the Nonary Games port for that. Also, The voice acting, like I said, is really well done, I think. I haven't listened to the Japanese dub much, but I do really like the English dub. I think it is really good. There are some stellar performances, like Evan Smith as Junpei and Richard Epcar as Ace, but there are also, other characters that I think are really good. Maybe they just don't get as much of a chance to shine, but they're still very good. It is very well done. However, if you do play the Nonary Games version, I am going to recommend that you play on novel mode. So there are 2 different modes in the Nonary Games version, which are not in the DS version. And this is novel mode and adventure mode. So, okay, on the DS version, on the top screen would be where like character dialogue was. And then the bottom screen would be more like a visual novel, like description of what is going on. It's almost like reading a book, which is why it's called novel mode. In the Nonary Games version, where you get these really in-depth descriptions, which can sometimes be kind of disgusting, but they really add to the atmosphere, which, like how I'm praising 999 so much for its atmosphere, I think that novel mode is really integral in making that atmosphere what it is. So I do highly recommend playing on novel mode. It is also kind of plot significant, but yeah, I do recommend playing on novel mode if you don't mind the reading. I just think it's overall a better experience, but in contrast, adventure mode is basically just the character dialogue without the more detailed descriptions coming from like a narrator. So yeah, I do recommend novel mode. It's kind of like the difference between reading a detailed book and then like going to the movie theater, and you're just kind of missing some things. So yeah, that's my recommendation. Also, if you have already played the Nonary Games version, because I know there are actually a lot of newer fans to Zero Escape that got into the series, after Zero Time Dilemma, and if you are one of those newer fans and you did play the Nonary Games version of 999, and you're like a huge 999 fan, I do recommend checking out the DS version as well, because there are certain pros to that game, even though it might not sound like it. I think obviously it is just kind of cool to see your favorite game from a different perspective, but the DS dual screens specifically, I think, add a lot to the story, and Zero Escape fans will tell you that there are certain things done in the first 999, the DS version of 999, that are better than the Nonary Games remaster, specifically regarding some of the ending stuff, how it's presented, and the visual novel mode and the adventure mode. It's just one thing, and it is kind of plot significant. So, and it does some cool things with it. So I do recommend checking that out. So now that I have talked for 50 minutes, let's talk for another half hour. Let's talk about spoilers. So if you are listening, if you have not played 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors before, I hope I sold you on it with that last bit that I was talking about. But now I'm talking to the people that have already played it and that I can talk spoilers with. And, if you haven't played it, but you still want to listen, that's fine. But I think 999 and Zero Escape games in general are best experienced when you don't know spoilers. So I am encouraging you to fuck off right now, but if you do want to keep listening, I'm not going to get mad at you. I might, I don't know. But first I want to talk about the characters. So this is your last warning. I am going to be talking about spoilers. So let's get into it. So I'm going to just talk about the characters in order from their numbers. So let's talk about Ace. So Ace is a good villain. And I think he's not an obvious villain at the start of the game, because obviously the main villain is Zero, and we don't know who Zero is. And Ace appears to be pretty well composed for the most part. He's an older man. He kind of, I don't want to say dad energy, but he almost appears comforting at some points in the early game. And it isn't obvious at all, I think, that he is the bad guy. But there is foreshadowing to it as well, which I think is pretty interesting. But he's very disturbing once you get to see the real side of him. But I also, I don't want to say he's sympathetic, because he's done a lot of bad things, but I also think it is compelling how his reasoning for doing the first nonary game, his idea was that by learning more about the morphogenetic field, maybe he could see faces. I do think that is very interesting. I do think that that adds to his character. But he is evil. Like, he is straight up evil. The things that he does in the first nonary game are unforgivable, and it's very disturbing seeing when you get to the true ending and just the pictures of him, the art of him, where just the look on his face, where like his eye is so wide open and he has this like very terrifying like grin, or like he's dragging Akane, like running with her and forcing her like into the fucking incinerator. Like it's a lot. He's very disturbing, and during the safe ending, he has these lines where he's talking about how he killed Clover, and the wording of it is almost like sexual in a way. Like, the way that he talks about it is very disturbing, especially because he's saying it to her brother, who is obviously like even more disturbed than I am. Like, oh my god. But I think Ace is a really fantastic villain. I also think it's kind of funny how, like, at the end of the game, he is, like, tied up. Like, they tie him up and, like, put duct tape on his mouth. And they're, like, driving away at the very end. But anyway, I think Ace is really good. I wish I could, like, I feel like I should say some more in-depth things, but nothing is coming to mind right now. And I should probably get on with this so we're not here all day. But who knows, maybe in the future we'll just completely psychoanalyze Ace. So our next character is Snake, also known as Light. And I forgot to mention this, Ace is also known as Gentaro Hongo. But talking about Snake, he's also known as Light, but we don't know that, obviously, until later on. He isn't present for a lot of the game, which kind of sucks. He's not my favorite character. He's not, I think, the most interesting or compelling character, but I do think that, you know, he has his good parts. So I think in the safe ending specifically, Snake is just shining. I think that is his best character moment, and I think it's one of the best moments in the game, when he is sort of in this showdown with Ace, and he's finding out what he did to Clover, and he's like, I'm gonna kill you. Like, I'm gonna drag you down to the pits of hell with me. Like, if I'm going to die, you're coming with me. And there's that one line, and this is one of those things where in novel mode, like, you need to play novel mode or you're not gonna see it. There's a line about how once a snake has ensnared its prey, it's not gonna let go. And that's, like, paraphrasing, but it's something along those lines, and I think that's it's very good. And it's just really incredible. I think that the safe ending, and I'm going to talk about this more, but it stands out to me, and I think Snake, in his reaction to all the things that Ace has done, is a big part of that. And then in the true ending, I think he is like a light, which is kind of ironic, that's his name, but he's a light for the other kids, talking about the nonary game that was 9 years ago, from, you know, what we're doing now. You know, he is one of the older kids on the ship, and he is, like, giving them these clovers and how we'll all be connected and all of that, and he's giving them a sense of hope. He is obviously a big brother. He is the big brother role for Clover. That's what we know him as in this game. But I also think it's interesting how, you know, even as a kid, he was very mature. And I don't know if, you know, it's like, obviously I think he was kind of forced to mature really early, because he lost his arm, he went blind because of this accident. Obviously, I'd assume that ages you a bit mentally, and then going through the nonary game, but he is very mature, and I think he's trying to hold everything together for everyone else, and I think that that's really cool, and I don't know if people really talk about that side of him very much, but he brings hope to them, and he's also very smart. He's kind of a smart ass. He is not pretentious. Maybe he is pretentious, but he's not like an asshole about it. You know what I mean? Like, he's not really an asshole about it most of the time. He's a good guy. He's a really good guy. But he's also very smart. Like, once you do, I think it's like the last escape room in the true ending, where they're in like this big library and he's just talking about all these things, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? So Snake is pretty cool. And then we move on to Santa. Santa curses a lot. I remember back in the day, back in like the Tumblr days of like Zero Escape, and it's definitely still out there somewhere. But there was like a pie chart, it was like a pie chart of what Zero Escape characters curse the most, which was very entertaining. And like we all know it's Dio, but in VLR, but in 999 it is Santa. Santa curses the most. So fun fact. He also taught me about the term pussyfooting, because he says that very early on in the game. So shout out to Santa. He is very funny. He has good dialogue, is what I have written here. But also, going more in depth than that, he helped Zero piece a part of this game to help his sister survive. My notes here are really messy. Here's what I put: has helped Zero piece apart this mini game to help, like, how is this a mini game anyway? I'm just calling myself out right now. But Santa's really cool, and I really like the scene in the safe ending where he has the picture, and obviously we don't see it, but it's him and June, or Kane. I'm probably gonna kind of use that interchangeably. And he's, telling this story about how he used to be her Santa, and then she died, and like Morphogenic Sorrow's playing. It's like, I'm gonna cry. But I think Santa is very interesting, and I wish that we seen more of him, because it just feels weird that we don't see him again, if that makes sense. Because, if you're listening, you probably played the rest of the Zero Escape game, so here's your spoiler warning for VLR and ZTD. But, if you think of some of the characters that play a really big role in the series, so Junpei Akane, who is, Zero in this game, and plays a big part in VLR and ZTD. And then if you think of Sigma, who is obviously a big part of VLR and ZTD, and is also Zero in VLR. Zero tends to have some impact on future games. And obviously Akane is technically Zero, but Santa, or Aoi Kurashiki, also plays a big role in this. And I do wish that we got to see him more. And I remember, Uchikoshi, either it was both tweets or the VLR interview, where, people were asking, are we going to see Santa or Aoi again in ZTD? And then we didn't. So, what could have been, but I think he's really cool. I think he definitely has depression, but he's great. And like I said, I wish I could go more in depth about him, but my brain is fried. So, next we have Clover, and I have some realizations about Clover. And if you watched me stream 999 the other day, you're probably sick of me talking about it, because I brought it up like 3 times. But I think that Clover is very interesting, because early on in the game, before Snake disappears, she's holding it together really well. I don't want to say she's like happy-go-lucky, because that seems really weird in this situation, but she's kind of cheerful. She's just vibing. Like, she's doing pretty okay. I think it's because she feels safe being around her brother, even in this shitty situation. She feels protected. She feels safe because of him. And obviously she knows what happened 9 years ago, so it's not completely unfamiliar territory. And so she starts off all right. But once Snake dies, she brings a lot of that sort of atmosphere of tension to the game. She makes everyone tense. Like, there's like a part in Persona 4 where Yosuke says something to Nanako about, like, oh, I bet your mom, like, makes really good pancakes or some shit. I don't know. It's something like that. And Nanako's like, my mom died. Like, it's that kind of energy where everyone just doesn't really know how to talk to her. Like once someone says that, like, what the fuck do you say? It's very similar energy as that. And it's almost like walking on eggshells. Like they just met her, so it's kind of weird to try and, like, comfort her, but also it's just a very weird energy that she brings to the group, and this tension, and they just don't know what to do with her. And when, they kind of start talking about what if Zero is one of us, Clover is the first one to say that and really be like, yeah, it's probably one of us. She doubts everyone because she just lost her brother. She can't trust anyone, you know? Before, she trusted Snake, obviously, but now she has no one that she can trust. One of these people killed her brother. Like, what the fuck? She is just very interesting in that way. And then obviously, there's the axe ending, which I think is where she snaps. And this is actually like the last ending that I ever got for 999. So I'd be interested to know how you would perceive Clover if you got that ending first. I feel like you would look at her differently, like every other playthrough. But anyway, that wasn't my experience. But yeah, I think that Clover is very interesting in that way. So then we have Junpei, who is, as I'm sure some of you know, my favorite character. Actually, he wasn't my favorite character when I first played 999, but after playing ZTD, he became my favorite character. But he is fantastic. I already said this, but Evan Smith's voice acting adds a lot to his character in the remaster. And he manages to be both dumb and very smart, which I think is fantastic. I think that's a very lovable trait. And I like seeing him pick up on other timelines in the true ending because of the morphogenetic field. So towards the ending, the true ending, he knows things that he shouldn't because, you know, we already did the safe ending where we found out about, like, Gentara Hongo and all these things about Cradle Pharmaceuticals, and Junpei shouldn't know some of that in the timeline that we are currently in, but he does, and I think that's very cool. Also, I think one thing that is really interesting about Junpei is that he had to be the protagonist in this game, which might sound kind of weird. It might sound kind of odd because it's like anyone could have been the protagonist. Like, it doesn't really matter. But, like, out of this group of characters specifically and with the circumstances, he had to be the protagonist. You know, you look at games like, I don't know, let's say Danganronpa, and, like, it's Makoto Naegi. He's the protagonist. And it fits him because he's, like, plain and boring. He's, like, the ultimate hope or whatever. But, you know, technically, Makoto Naegi could have been anything. He could have had kind of different personality. He could have had a different backstory, you know, like his backstory with Meizono. It didn't have to be there, but it was for plot reasons, which is fine. But it wasn't have to be that way. But with Junpei, he has to be the protagonist of this because of his relationship with Akane. No one else in that group could have saved her, which I think is interesting. He has to be the protagonist because this whole game has built up that we have to save Akane, and that is the final part of the game. And the boss battle, if you will, is Sudoku. And I think Junpei has a lot to deal with when it comes to that, and obviously you can't really start to unpack that until the very end of the game, but he has this burden of saving a child. Like, what the fuck? He has a lot to deal with, and I cannot imagine. I cannot imagine being in that position. But he is a very good protagonist, I think. Just fantastic. And I find sometimes protagonist characters can be difficult to talk about because maybe you don't analyze them the most, which is, I feel like, kind of what I'm doing right now. But he's a great protagonist, so yeah. And next we have Akane, or June. I'm going to call her Akane from here on out, I think. She is fantastic. I think that regardless of the rest of the games in Zero Escape, I think that 999 Akane is one of the best written characters that I have seen, truly. And I think that, and she's my favorite villain, I think, in probably any game, because what is a villain, right? She has her reasons for doing what she did. She's not this big, bad, like, very obvious villain, and at the same time, you can sympathize with her like you would a regular villain, but there are a lot of villains that you can sympathize with. You see why they have done the things they do, but I think Akane specifically is very, very interesting, in that she's very morally gray. Her motivations are very different, I think, than most villains that I've seen. Because even if you have a sympathetic villain, their reasoning for doing things isn't always there. You know, the ends doesn't justify the means, I guess. Or vice versa, I don't know. But Akane is like, she's doing this to save herself. And God, have you ever seen any other story where this happens? Because I haven't. She starts off as the regular love interest. You don't really think much about her. You might suspect her because she seems a bit too good, but she's into conspiracy. She has a lot of knowledge. She probably likes astrology. But then you find out all of this deep shit about her and how she was a part of this nonary game. Now she fucking died, but somehow she's here. That's kind of weird. Another interesting thing is that she faints a lot, and I believe this was confirmed that when she is fainting, it's usually because we are on the wrong track. So she faints quite a bit in the safe ending. And I believe, I could be wrong, but I think she also faints around the time if you choose to go in door 2. I think she faints, but I could be wrong about that. But she faints a lot when things are going wrong, and if you get like the sub ending or the safe ending, she will literally like fade away. Like you'll turn around and then she's gone. Like she is just fucking faded away because you chose the wrong path. Very, very fun, lighthearted things going on. I think what really solidified Akane as being a good villain and being fantastic was the whole I am Zero monologue in the true ending, where you find out that it's her, and she just talks about the shit that she went through and what she had to do to get there, and it's so unique, and like the feeling it gives me, it's another thing about that atmosphere. It's very unique, and I haven't seen like another game that really made me feel that way. Just very, very fantastic. And she's very selfish, which I don't know if that's like controversial to say, but she is very, very selfish. She did this whole thing to save herself, which it is what it is. Like, I get your motivations, but like I said, she's very morally gray in the way that she did this to save herself, which I don't think we can really blame her for. But at the same time, you see this dark side of her where she is taking revenge on the people that killed her and put her and these other kids through the first nonary game 9 years ago, where, you know, she knew from the morphogenetic field, she knew that she was going to kill the other members of Cradle Pharmaceuticals, except for Ace, because she wanted him to suffer more. Like, I don't know, that's a lot. Like, she willingly killed 3 people. She planned on doing that. She killed them to get her revenge, and then she made the last one suffer. And I don't blame her for Ace. Like, I don't blame her for any of that, but it's very interesting because, you know, I think for the most part, most of us can agree that killing people is morally wrong, even if we think that we have reasons. If it's not, like, right in self-defense, I think a lot of people would agree that, for the most part, you don't want to kill people. So she is very morally gray, and even the people that she doesn't kill, that have not done her wrong, that are going to help her even, she puts them through a lot of trauma with the nonary game. She is not a good person. I struggle to call her a good person, even though I think that her intentions are good. I think that she is selfish, and I love her. Like, she's one of my favorite characters because of that. I think that she is very interesting, but I think that she is very selfish, and that it's not that she doesn't think about how this will affect the other people and their lives, but she definitely is prioritizing herself. She puts Junpei, this person that she loves, that has done a lot for her, she's putting him through so much, all this trauma to save her, and this burden that he has to carry of, you know, saving her. And, you know, it's a lot. And, like, she puts Seven, Lotus, Clover, Snake, she puts all of them through this as well. You know, Santa, or Aoi, has willingly agreed to do this. He wants to save her. But, and I'm sure, you know, once Junpei figures out that this is going to save her, he's fine with it. But that's a lot to unpack, you guys. Like, there's just so much. Like, I doubt Lotus and Seven and Clover and Snake want to be a part of this. You just gave them trauma for life, honey. And I mean, obviously, they all already have trauma, but it's a lot. I also think it is cool, if you play the DS version, or even if you play the Nonary Games version, you'll probably know that the novel mode or the bottom screen is narrated by Child Akane, seeing things through Junpei's eyes, basically using the morphogenetic field. And this is actually foreshadowed by certain lines, at least in my mind it's foreshadowed. I can't remember if this was like confirmed or not, but as we noticed when we were streaming the game, there's a lot of descriptions that are compared to food. She compares intestines to like spaghetti, and then there's another one where she's saying like raw pizza dough with tomato sauce. And it's very weird descriptions. It's very, I think, accurate and adds to the atmosphere as well. But it's these really weird descriptions of insides, basically, and being strewn about. And she's a child. How else is she going to describe those sites, you know? I think it's pretty cool on their part. But yeah, I think that Akane overall is a fantastic character in this game. And, you know, I feel like I could analyze her forever. Like, she is just very, very interesting. And I feel like, as a lot of things with 999, the more I play it, the more I pick up on certain things, and the more I'm like, holy fuck. You know, it's very interesting. Like I said, there were some things about Clover and what she brings to the table that, you know, I'm sure I already like subconsciously kind of picked up on, but, you know, really being able to dive deep into that is really interesting to me. So if you're also a big fan of 999, I hope you're enjoying listening to me just ramble on. So then we have Seven, who, when I first played 999, he was my favorite character. I love Seven so much. He is so funny. He's like a big bear that I just want to hug. Like, he's very lovable. I know there's one part in, I can't remember, it's like the first class cabin, where it's the escape room part, and he can like sing a little song to Junpei. It's about him like being a Taurus or something, just because he says that Junpei seems like a Taurus. He's just very funny like that and very wholesome. He's a very wholesome character. He's really great, and he also has amnesia at the beginning of the game, as you already know. And this is obviously vital to the plot, because here's the thing. People couldn't know who Ace was. So obviously Snake knew, but he wasn't going to say anything about it. Whereas I feel like if it was if Seven retained his memories and like recognized Ace, everything would have gone downhill, because I think Seven would have been pissed off and would have like gone after him, whereas obviously Snake didn't, which I think is pretty cool. But he helped save the kids in the first Nonary game, and actually you find this out in the true ending, but also if you go through, I can't remember what door it is, but it's one of the doors that only leads to a bad ending. There's never any situation where it leads to a good ending. You go in it with Junpei, Lotus, and Seven, and he starts remembering things, because this is basically where he was when he snuck onto the ship to save the children, but then he was caught, so they like detained him in this little sort of like jail cell almost. And so he's back in that room, and that's how he remembers. So he helped save the kids in the first Nonary game. I love him. Like, good for him. Like, I just gotta clap for Seven. That was a weird clap, but like, I love him very much. And I also love his dynamic with Junpei and Lotus. He's just very lovable, and you know, him and Junpei are kind of like bros, and there's like some parts where like Seven, I don't know if he like hugs him or just like he like pats him on the back, and there's like a thumping sound, and Junpei's like, holy shit, because he's just like, he's like a big dog that is just so lovable and like doesn't know how hard he's being on you. He's just a good guy. He would protect you, and he's great. He's fantastic. I love Seven so much. He's still one of my favorite characters in this game. And if we were ever to get another Zero Escape game, I would want to see Seven. Like, truly. He briefly gets mentioned in ZTD, but that's not enough for me. So, yeah. And then we have Lotus, who is fantastic. She is older. She dresses very, very unique, I will say. And she's also a programmer, and she's very smart, and I really like that about her. I will say I don't like how a lot of the other characters treat her. I do like her dynamic with Seven, but, you know, even the other characters are kind of like, what the fuck? And I don't know. I don't like how they make fun of her for being older. I think it's kind of weird, especially because she doesn't look older at all. I remember when I first played this game, I was like, she's like 40. Like, what the fuck? She does not look like 40 with those titties. But anyway, stop being mean to Lotus. I think that she is, she was also one of my favorite characters when I first played 999, and she's still one of my favorite characters. So, yeah. And here's an interesting thing about her, is that she appears to be selfish throughout the game. So there's a few times where she'll talk to Junpei, and she's like, we could go through this door. And it's not like an agreed upon thing, like they haven't really talked about it yet. She's like, well, we could. She talks about teaming up with, I think, Junpei, Akane, I don't remember who else, maybe Clover, at some point, to go through a certain door. And she appears to be selfish throughout the game. But then I think it's interesting because when you get to the true ending, she's actually willing to be sacrificed, because they're talking about how they're going to get through the number 9 door with the bracelets that they have. And basically the math that Clover figures out is that they can't get through with Lotus. And she's like, it's okay, guys, like, go on without me. And that's, I mean, obviously that doesn't happen, but I think that does show some sort of growth for her, and also for Seven, because they've been fighting this entire time so far. And once Lotus talks about, how she will be this sacrificial lamb, Seven's like, no, like, no. I love them so much. I think that they are married, happily married now. That's not canon at all, by the way. That's just me saying what I want. But she is also the mother of twins that were actually in the first Nonary game, and so that's how she's connected to all this, but she doesn't know that. She only actually finds out about that in, like, one ending, which isn't, like, the safe ending or the true ending, I believe. She might be kind of piecing it together in the true ending, but it isn't. It's only in the ending where you're with Junpei, Seven, and Lotus, where Seven sort of explains it to her. That's what happened. And I remember she feels kind of guilty about it, if I remember correctly. So that's kind of sad. Like, you did nothing wrong, Queen. So throughout a lot of the true ending, where they're talking about, like, what happened 9 years ago, there's a lot of parts where Lotus is like, what the hell happened 9 years ago? Like, why the fuck? Like, 9 years this, 9 years that. What the fuck happened? And she's just very left out, and I feel kind of bad for her. But it is kind of funny, so it is what it is. And then our last main character is the Ninth Man. And the Ninth Man is less of a character and more of a plot device, which you would think would be a bad thing, but I actually think it works really good here. So he works as a plot device to show the gravity of the situation. He is very skittish at first. He's not really saying anything. And then he pulls a knife on Clover, and he's like, I'm going through this door, fuck you guys, basically. But once he gets through the door, he realizes he's about to be killed because the dead or the red, one of them, the verifier thing, hasn't worked. And so he's like, fuck, I'm about to explode. And there's actually some foreshadowing here about Ace being a traitor, or maybe traitor isn't the right word, but about Ace's backstory, where the Ninth Man is saying, he did this to me. And, first time playing that, for me at least, I was a lot younger, but, first time playing it, I kind of brushed that off. I was like, this man is fucking, like, he's crazy. Like, I don't, I just didn't think about it. But that is actually foreshadowing, and that is revealed, I believe, in the safe ending, when Junpei is piecing together that Ace has done all this shit. And so, yeah. But he does work as a plot device, the Ninth Man, for basically just showing how high the stakes are for this Nonary game, and that it is very real. And obviously the number 9 bracelet works as a plot device throughout the game in pretty much every ending. It's very important. So he's a plot device for the most part, but I think that's okay. So let's talk about the endings. So I really gotta push through this. This is a long ass podcast. So the bad endings are Knife, Submarine, and Axe. And they all depend on the last door you go through. I can't remember exactly what ones, but they all depend on the last door you go through. So if you don't go through the doors in a certain order to get safe or true ending, the ending you get completely depends on the last one that you choose. And also, if you ever played the iOS version of 999, you can't get it anymore. I only have it on like a really old iPod. So it's like not up to buy anywhere, but that was a thing at some point. And there was a syringe ending, which is, if I remember correctly, Clover basically drugs you. So same kind of idea as the axe ending, only a bit different. And I believe that happens if you go through the shower room. It's something along those lines. It's not too memorable, so you didn't really miss much, but there is another ending in the iOS version. So yeah. And also, I don't think I mentioned this earlier. I'm like trying to keep track of what I haven't already said. But I believe it is both the knife and the submarine ending, or at least one of them, that foreshadows that Ace is killing people. Because I believe it is shown in one of them, everyone is dead basically, and Ace is there, and he's laying there, but I believe Junpei checks everyone's pulse except for Ace, or like, he's the only one that's not covered in blood. I don't remember exactly, but it's something along those lines. There is foreshadowing that it is Ace that is killing everyone, so fun times. But anyway, let's talk about the safe ending. So this might be my favorite in the game. Obviously, I'm torn between that and the true ending, but it is very, very fantastic. And I love the build up to the scene with Junpei interrogating Ace. That was one of my favorite parts in the game. Throughout that entire timeline, you have Lotus explaining prosopagnosia, Ace not being able to finish the puzzle in I don't remember what room it's called, but he can't finish it because it has faces. And then you have the scene in the big hospital room where Junpei is interrogating Ace. And the safe ending, in my opinion, has some of the most iconic lines in the entire series. Other than Akane's sort of monologue about being zero in the true ending. You have truth had gone, and truth had gone. Something with the sinister hand, I don't remember the rest. But I love that line. I think it's just very cool seeing Junpei sort of piece together that riddle of truth had gone and, using the buttons on the bracelet and finding the note. It's just very cool. I love it so much. We recently streamed this and I had so much fun playing it, so much so that I wanted to talk about it on the podcast. Now here we are. I've currently been recording for 1 hour, 24 minutes, so let's go. But yeah, I really love seeing it come together. And then there's, of course, the other iconic line. Unfortunately, that's the wrong answer. Actually, I'm Santa. And I don't know, maybe I'm just biased in some way. Maybe I'm the only one that likes those lines as much as I do, but I love the safe ending. And I already briefly talked about this, but no one tells Snake that Clover died. I forgot to mention that. So Clover dies. But no one tells Snake that Clover dies once they find him. They get him out of the coffin. No one tells him. And then, so now it's up to Ace to tell him, which is not great because Ace is the one that killed her. And I talked about this earlier, where his lines and Richard Epcart's voice acting are just really fantastic here. Very disturbing. Very great. And then we get to the true ending. So you learn a lot here about Ice 9. So just throughout the timeline, you got a lot of sort of explanations from Akane, from Lotus, from a lot of people. You learn about all ice, the morphogenic field theory, etc., etc. One of the scenes that I really like in the true ending is where Clover hugs Junpei because Snake isn't dead. It's because, like I said, up to that point, she has been very tense. She has been this very sort of negative energy character, given her circumstances of what has happened to her brother. And I really like how it's very, light in that, the picture, if that makes sense. Clover is, crying, and she's just very happy, and she's just hugging Junpei. Junpei's kind of like, what the fuck? But it is, it's a very nice scene, and I really love it. It's great. But as for, the general true ending, and this also goes for the safe ending, they are just heartbreaking. Anytime that morphogenic sorrow plays in this game, I am just a mess. Because morphogenic sorrow just feels so emotionally heavy, and, the parts where it plays are so emotionally heavy. It's just so good. And yeah, we learned about the nonary game 9 years ago, Kane dying, and one part that is really sort of scary, like I pointed out earlier, was the madness in Ace's face. when Akane is trying to solve the final puzzle. It's fucked. And you have this big moment of Akane, saying that she's Zero. I mean, not really. It's just the narrator. It's not like actually Akane like telling us in, the actual part that we are at is her narrating through the morphogenetic field, I guess. Everything. And then it's up to Junpei to save her. And then you get that final Sudoku puzzle, which they fucking ruined in the Nonary Games version. I'm so sorry if you played the Nonary Games version of this game first. That is the one thing I really don't like about the Nonary Games, because Sudoku would still have been fine, I think. I don't know why they didn't keep it, why they just completely changed the puzzle. Obviously, I don't think you could have done the 2-screen thing like you did on the DS, so if you played the DS version, you'll know that, you have to actually flip the DS around, which is really cool. It's kind of hard to explain, but it was a very cool moment, and so that's, a reason why I recommend play the DS version if you can, if you're interested. It's very cool, and oh my god, the image of Akane, like child Akane, just sobbing as she looks into the monitor of this fucking Sudoku machine puzzle, because she has no idea what the fuck to do. She's only a child, and it's a heartbreaking, like that genuinely, it makes me feel things, that picture of Akane just sobbing, because she doesn't, like, could you imagine being, like, 8, 9 years old, I don't know how old they are, I'm gonna say, like, 9, 10, and just knowing you're going to die because you can't solve a puzzle and you're stuck in a fucking incinerator, and this grown-ass old man is, like, staring into the thing, screaming at you to just do it, just connect to the morphogenetic field, and then you connect through the morphogenetic field with this boy that you have a crush on, only it's like 9 years later. It's a lot to unpack, but it is so good, and I just love this game so much. And I feel like, I'm sure I'm not the only one that thinks this, but like the first time I got the true ending, I was kind of like, what the fuck just happened? And even now I'm still kind of like, what the fuck happened? But I love this game so much. I think that the storytelling is absolutely fantastic. It just, I would like another Zero Escape. But then we do escape. They do, and they find out that they aren't actually on a ship. They were at the other place in Nevada, and so then they just drive away. But Akane and Santa are nowhere to be found, so that's fun. We just put everyone through absolute hell, and now we can't even say thank you. Like, okay, that is a bit weird. I do understand why they do it, but like, what the fuck? That's what I mean when I say that I think Akane is really selfish. Like, I think there are reasons, like more in-depth explanations somewhere online about why they do that, but it's just like, bro, we literally just saved you after you killed, like, 3 people and put us all through hell, and you can't even say thank you? I mean, I'm sure Junpei, like, through the morphogenetic field, younger Akane thanks Junpei, but, like, what the fuck? But anyway, it's a solid 9 out of 9 game. Really love it. Best game of all time. My favorite game of all time. Definitely favorite story of all time. And just fantastic. So I'm sure sometime in the future I will probably do a similar episode like this talking about Virtue's Last Reward, because I already did one about Zero Time Dilemma. So this is like the weirdest order ever to cover the Zero Escape games. Like, what was it, two episodes ago it was Zero Time Dilemma, now it's 999. Who knows, someday it'll be VLR. Just completely out of order, but it's fine. But I had a lot to say after streaming it, and just really, because I have a lot of fun sharing and just talking about 999 with you guys, and I really realized that when I was streaming the other day, doing the safe ending. I was just so happy. So I thought I would do a podcast episode going more in depth about my thoughts. So yeah. Thank you so much for listening to the Luna's Galaxy podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube, or leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps me out a lot. You can rate me 5 stars. That is fantastic. Or if you want to like write out a full review like with words and everything, that is so nice. I very much appreciate it. I will be back on Tuesday, September 28th for the next episode where we'll be discussing who knows what. If you want to be a part of the Luna's Galaxy community, you can join our Discord server, link in the description, Luna's Galaxy. You can also keep up with me on Twitter, Instagram, or Twitch, where I'm at Emmy Luna Games. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.